friends, welcome. My name is Kayla, and today I want to talk about all the books that I read in the month of June. Month I read 8 books. How, I have no idea, because I feel like every book I started, I just couldn't get into it and had to pick a new one. So I did go through probably 3, 4, 5 maybe, before I could get invested in anything. But I'm going to start with my lowest ranked book and then go all the way up to the 5 stars, because I do have some 5 stars. I don't have any 1 or 2 stars. Those rankings are rare for me, because if I'm not liking the book, I'm just gonna put it down. I'm just gonna DNF it, whether it's a permanent DNF or maybe I'm just not in the mood for that genre, or the vibes aren't working for me and I may come back to it later. I think all of these are going to be just 3 stars and above, and that's going to be what you're going to typically see from me in these monthly wrap-ups. So we'll just jump right into the books. So the first one, 3-star, is The Crash by Freida McFadden. I know some people, she's a lover, hate author. For the most part, I tend to enjoy her books. This one just did not work for me, especially the ending. Too neat, which is weird coming from me, because I tend to like a solid wrapped up ending in a book. I don't particularly care for when an author leaves the ending open to interpretation. Like example, Yellowface. If you've read that, you know the ending, it wasn't completely settled as far as like what happens to June. So that bothered me when I read that. This one just was too neat and tidy, and if you've read it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, because I don't want to do any kind of spoilers, and at least do my best to not have any spoilers. But we're following Tegan. Because she is pregnant. She had, like, I guess a one-night stand with somebody at her brother's. He's runs like a ski resort, and she just had a one-night stand. Ended up getting pregnant. Some stuff goes down with that. Her brother convinces her to come up and stay with her for a couple weeks. So she does, and on her way, I believe it was her brakes go out and she ends up off the road. It's also in the middle of like a snowstorm, because she does not leave her house or apartment the time she wanted, and she just didn't beat the storm. And then this man ends up coming and kind of digging her out, takes her home. She's also injured on top of being pregnant. Takes her to his house, because he's like, my wife is a nurse. And then once she gets there, the vibes are off and it's weird. She ends up in this like makeshift hospital room in their basement, because I guess they were previously taking care of the wife's ill mother, and it just kind of snowballs from there. Freida McFadden fashion, multiple twists. Some I saw coming. The big one I actually did not, so she did get me there, but like I said, it was just, the ending didn't work for me, which was a bummer. So, and 3 stars. My next 2 are going to be 3.5s. The first one is That Crush. I actually arc read this one for the author Jillian Dodd. I've read multiple books by her before. I love her writing. This one, it's book, I believe 9 in the series. But the way she does her series is they're not necessarily all standalone when it comes to like romance. You know, typical, think of like Elsie Silver or even like Abby Jimenez or Ali Hazelwood, where they're series but they can be standalones and you can just read them in whatever order you want. Hers, you do need to read in order, but the way she lays them out and plots them out is like, I believe in this one, the first 3 follow one couple and their story, and then the next 3 follow a different couple and kind of their story, and then the next 2, I think we do a time jump, because I believe in the next one, either the main female or character or the main male character ends up being the kid of one of the couples from before. And then into book 9, she switches characters again. No time jump, but it ends up being like the best friend of the guy from like book 7 and 8. So you don't have to necessarily read them all. I didn't. I just jumped in right at 9 because I knew it was starting a new kind of like section. But they're all like, I guess, that series. So it's like That Boy, That Summer, That Wedding, I think, is one of them. This one was That Crush. So we're following these two characters. They met briefly when they were younger. I believe she was like 18 or 19. She was a freshman year in college. He was actually still in high school. I believe he's like 15. He immediately was like, that's my future wife. And then we kind of, that was like a little flashback, and then they meet again, like I think it's like 4 or 5 years later, at a family reunion of all places. So that was a little kind of, are we about to hit Credence level here? Because I'm out. Wasn't that. They're not related, not even close. It's just his mom is like married her uncle, but they didn't grow up together. Like they met for the first time, you know, they were both teenagers, just and older teenagers at that. That was like explained and made very clear. I felt a little bit better. I was like, well, just keep going. But that threw me at the beginning, and then it was too insta love, because while yes, he might have had that instant attraction when he was 15. I mean, she obviously was like, oh, he's kind of cute, but then she found out how old he was, and she was like, no, like, so yeah, as they got older, he's still, I guess, without really knowing her, was just like immediate, like, still, you're gonna be my wife, and that just kind of felt like, to me, and then she was just like, very much of, this is just gonna be a summer fling, but also instant love. So it was like she couldn't make up her mind which way she wanted to go. It ends on not a spoiler. It ends on a cliffhanger, and it's going in a direction I don't necessarily know if I'm gonna love. So I'm still undecided if I'm gonna keep going with this. I am interested though to go back and start at the beginning with book 1. But yeah, there's just a handful of like things that just, it didn't really work for me. The writing was good. It was fun. Something I love about Gillian Dodd in all of her, from at least all the different series of hers that I have read. She packs a lot in a single book. And they typically each book can span from, you know, just a couple of days to, like in this case, it was only a week. It was just a week long, like, family reunion, from start to finish, to where then, you know, at the end of the week, he's getting ready to start college. He's a football player. So we're going to start getting into that, like, sports romance, I would assume, as it goes. And she has, like, an internship that she's doing because she's also in college. So, I don't know. We'll see. I think the next one comes out later this year. So we'll see if I continue with that. But that ended up being a 3.5 for me. The other 3.5 I had was Party of Liars by Kelsey Cox, I believe is her name. This actually was also another arc that I read. It came out in July. Oh, That Crush came out in June, like middle June. But this one came out, it was July 1st. I did audio, which I think made it better, only because you're getting a different narrator for each character that we're following. My big, like, 4-5-star energy for the most of the book. I was loving it. It's messy. The family dynamics in this is crazy. But you're following it. Basically, the story is it's Sophie's 16th birthday party. So you're at this party the whole time you're reading. But the characters that you're following is Danny, which is Sophie's stepmother. And then you're following Kim, which is Sophie's mother. And then Michaela, which is her best friend. And then you're following, I believe her name is Olith, and she is the nanny of Danny's, like, newborn that she just had. Like, I think she's only like a couple weeks old, a couple months old. So, and for me, what didn't work is the 4 points of views. I think all the different reveals that start coming out in the second half of the book, and then all the big ones at the end, would have had a bigger impact if we didn't have Michaela or the nanny's point of view. I think if we just followed stepmom and mom, it would have totally been a 4 or 5 star for me. I think Michaela's and Ola's point of view, they revealed too much to then, once you got to the reveal, it was, even if you didn't necessarily see it coming, it wasn't surprising. Because it made sense. Not that you want something to be like completely out of like left field. I think they just gave too much away during their point of views, which took away from some of the punch that you want in a thriller. So we're gonna jump into the 4 stars. First up, as far as a 4 star goes, is gonna be another Freida McFadden. So we got The Tenant. This one worked for me a lot better. It definitely gave housemaid vibes. Honestly, I thought it was kind of starting early on. I was like, oh, this is like the same story, except for reverse. You're getting mostly a male point of view. So we're following Blake Porter. He is just going through it. A lot of bad luck. He's recently fired very abruptly from his job after recently getting promoted as the VP of marketing for this company. And he's, because of the promotion and just how he's been doing in his career, him and his fiance recently bought this like beautiful brownstone in the city. Well, now because he's not working, they're struggling to now pay for it. So his fiance is like, let's get a roommate. I know you're not gonna love the idea, but like, it'll help, even if it's just for the year, until we can just get, you find a new job and we can get back on our feet. So enter Whitney, who ends up being the person that moves in and ends up being Blake and his fiance's roommate. Blake immediately finds her really attractive. She seems relatively normal compared to everybody else that they interviewed. So she moves in. Things are going great. They all kind of mesh well together, at least in the beginning. And then Blake all of a sudden starts noticing some weird things happening. So he keeps smelling this like smell of like decay in the house, and he can't figure out where it's coming from. He also keeps getting woken up at night. So the way the brownstone is it's 3 stories. So him and his fiance are his bedroom is on the 2nd floor. Whitney's room, like the guest room, is on the 3rd floor. So he keeps hearing her like moving around like really loudly in the middle of the night, and it's driving him crazy. He tries to confront her, and she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I don't smell anything. I'm not getting up in the middle of the night. So this keeps going on and on. The fiance and Whitney both think he's losing his mind. But he's determined that it's Whitney, that she's the problem, and she has to go. So he starts doing things like basically payback. Just trying to get her to eventually move out. He's like, you know what, fuck it, we don't need the rent, like we'll figure it out, like she's gotta go. So he keeps doing all these things. She doesn't leave. So he's like, all right, I'm gonna kind of figure out, like maybe get some more background information, because all the other interviews for the different tenant like candidates were nuts, and he wasn't interested in them. So as soon as she was relatively normal, he was like, you're in, as long as she can pass a background check, which she did. So he does a little bit more digging, and obviously he ends up figuring out she's not like who she says she is. I'm not going to go any further with that just because it's spoilers. But once he starts figuring things out, it's too late. The plan is already in play. So I, again, really enjoyed this one. This was super good time. My favorite thing with her books, they're just so fast paced. And I mean, I can say the same thing about The Crash. It was super like fast paced. I'm never bored. I typically don't physically like read these. I usually audiobook them while I'm doing other things. So that's what I did with both of these. And I think that could be too and that's how I predominantly read thrillers, is through audio. I think it's just I can't think about it too much, just because it's constantly going to, like when you're reading and you get to a certain point and you're like, wait, and you can stop. I mean, obviously I can hit pause, but to like kind of think about stuff and work with thrillers, I'm going. Or with audiobooks, I'm just going because I'm typically doing something. I'm not just like sitting here listening to a book. That pause time to really think of and try to work stuff out. So a lot of times with audio, the surprise sometimes can catch me. Sometimes it's still super obvious what it's going to be. Like part of one of the big reveals here, I wasn't shocked about. I figured that out. But like the very end did get me. So which was fun. I had a good time. The next 4-star book is A House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher. So like I said in my last video, this was the first T. Kingfisher that I've read. So this is a horror. Wasn't super like scary, and for the most part, I don't really think most horror is necessarily supposed to be thrilling, like when you think of like a movie, because you've got like jump scares and stuff like that. Where with these, it's just weird. And this is by far the weirdest book I've ever read. So we're following Sam. She is an entomologist who is supposed to be starting this dig on an archaeologist site. But before it can even get started, I guess the archaeologists on the project discover human remains. Like recent human remains. So everything gets put on hold while that investigation happens. So she has already subletted her apartment for the next like 6 months or however long she was supposed to be on this project. So she decides she's just going to go home to North Carolina, live with her mom for a little bit until the project gets up and going. But when she gets home, she realizes that like her mom's not acting normal. She's repainted, she's redecorated, she brought a lot of like her grandmother's stuff out that had been like put away when her grandmother died, because it was her grandmother's house. So Sam and her brother did grow up in this house when I can't remember if their dad had either passed away or if he just left. So her mom moved Sam and her brother in with her grandma to live. So obviously she's like, what's going on? She calls her brother and was like, hey, like, have you, like, was mom like this last time you saw her? Like, have you talked to her recently? Like, what is going on? So her being a scientist, she just can't let stuff go. She's got to find the answer. Even though people are like, just because you're a scientist and I know you're looking for like an exact specific thing, like there's other things of the world. So we get a little bit of supernatural going on with this. There's a lot of, I think there's a vulture on the cover, so those are very present in this book. A lot of bugs, so it's very weird. The ending was awesome, really enjoyed it. I do have another T. Kingfisher on my TBR for the month of July, which I talked about in my last video, so that I'm very excited. That one's more of like a, I think, dark fantasy, not so much horror, that I can't wait to get to. So the last 4-star I've got is Love Among the Vines by Madison Score. This is a romance, small town romance. We are following Jade. She agreed to be a bridesmaid in her ex-boyfriend's wedding. So the bride is her best friend. Long story short, he left Jade for the best friend, but because they're best friends, she 2 years later they're getting married, and she's like, yes, I'll be a bridesmaid. Obviously she regrets that decision. It ends up being a whole like shit show. But where the vineyard part comes in is they do the bride's bachelorette party at in the Finger Lakes in upstate New York. At this they go to this, they do like a wine hop on like a bus, and she meets Rhett, who owns the winery at one of the stops. One of the friends ends up talking basically shit about his wine. She's like, oh no, like, your wine's amazing, all the others we've tried is super sweet, yours is great, whatever. So she tries to apologize. He just kind of blows her off and is like, yeah, you're just trying to like be nice or whatever. She ends up going back the next day, apologizing. She kind of word vomits out the whole situation, because he like asks her like, why are you even friends with him, like, whatever. So she kind of goes into her whole story of like what happened and how she ended up in this situation that she's in. He ends up kind of relating to her because his ex-girlfriend left him for his brother. So, and he is in the middle of planning this like anniversary party for the vineyard winery, because he did inherit it when his grandmother passed, and that was like her pride and joy. So he's like, hey, I'll be your date to the wedding if you be my date to this party, because my parents keep trying to set me up. So it's fake dating situation. It was a good time. I really liked it. My only complaint, I think what made it not be 5 stars for me, is it's too long. It was way too long. I think it's like I'm trying to find like the last page. It's like 427 pages. Which for me is a little too long for a romance. I prefer like the 320 is like that sweet spot for me when it comes to romance. I start to feel like it drags. But 4 stars. I loved it. It was a great time. Definitely recommend it. Great summer read. All right, so these last 2 are going to be my 5 stars, and I feel like I'm not going to do them justice when I talk about them. So the first 5 star that I've got is Untamed by Glennon Doyle. This was so good. Be completely honest, I bought this a few years ago from a library sale. Loved the vibes of the cover. It's usually how books will get me. I didn't read the inside. I just was like, all right, it's probably like $2 or $3. Threw it in my bag or box or whatever I was carrying around with me. And then it sat on my shelves. So I didn't even realize this was a nonfiction book, let alone like a memoir of someone didn't even know who she was. So this is a memoir. It's not her whole life, but it's a very big part of her life, and it's basically her untaming herself. The biggest topic within this is how women from a young age are taught, just have this, I guess, natural instinct to appease people and to make yourself small and just go along with it, live up to that society's expectation of, keeping your mouth shut and not stating your opinions and just staying with your husband or spouse, even if they're having an affair. It happened to her. And just being okay with being, I guess, uncomfortable. And a common thing she says in this book is, like, we can do hard things. And I absolutely love that. She talks about the way she wants to raise her kids. She has 2 girls and 1 boy. And she has actually a whole chapter on just boys and the expectation that gets put on boys of, just swallow your emotions. Don't let that out. Don't let the world see you be sad. And, and as a mother who is raising a boy, that resonated with me, because something he takes after of me is when I'm pissed, I will cry. And he does that. And I remember a few years ago at a soccer game at the end, it was the last game of the season. They played hard. They lost. There were some bad calls. There were some calls missed by the refs. I mean, and those refs are like 15, 16-year-olds. So, too, like, you know, you have professional referees that are going to miss things that or make bad calls or whatever. So, like, obviously, teenagers are also going to miss calls or maybe not make the right call. And it's just what it is. And at the end, I remember my mother being like, is he, like, sad because they grew out? I was like, no, he's pissed. Like, he's competitive. He wanted to win. They were neck and neck the whole time. I've probably never been more stressed at a 9-year-old soccer game in my life. Just because I wanted that win for that team so badly. They'd worked so hard all season. And he's just there, like... And I'm like, just let it out. You know, it's okay. Like, and of course, you know, people are like looking at him, like, and I'm assuming he's probably just crying because he lost or the team lost and he was just mad. And, you know, I was like, it's okay to be mad. But you also have to know that there are things in life that you can control and that you can't. And this was a situation where you can't. You played your hardest. Your team played their hardest. You guys worked together. You communicated. And, you know, you guys still should be proud, but you can still be mad. And so that was something that really resonated with me. I'm gonna do it for all the books, but I'm gonna link these down in like the description box below, but to Goodreads, just so you can read like the premise on each one, because again, I don't feel like I'm doing this one, and I'm definitely not going to do the next one any kind of justice. But my last book that I read, it was actually the first book I read in the month, and started out with a bang, because it was a 5-star, which is The Future, by Naomi Alderman. This is science fiction, which is not my normal genre, but it always ends up, I love them so much. I was just talking to friends of mine who is starting, she just recently started Project Hail Mary, which is on my list of books I will get to someday, who she also never reads sci-fi, but we were talking about how like the science fiction books just come out of nowhere and they always end up being favorites. But anyways, more about this one. You're following a few different people. The main two you're following is Martha and Lee, I think. Yeah, Lee Jin. Martha works for... He owns like a social... Think of like a Mark Zuckerberg. That's the best way I can explain it. She works for him. He runs like the #1 like social media platform in the world. And then Lei is a like influencer, but for like surviving, like survival skills. So like if say you're in like your house is on fire, like what you do to escape, or like if you're in a public situation or in a public setting and there's like a shooting, like what do you do? So that's kind of what she's known for. She's very popular, lots of followers on the social media in here. The very beginning, you bounce between 3 different points of views, which is one being, I think his name is Link or something like that, and who is the founder and CEO of that social media. And then the other person was the CEO of like a tech company, so think of like an Apple or like a Samsung. They're known for like computers, smartphones, watches, tablets, stuff like that. And then the other one was like a logistics company. These 3 have all bunkers around the globe, in case like some kind of disaster or pandemic or nuclear warfare situation happens, that they can just go to them, their families, close ones, and they survive the apocalypse or the end of the world. So you're getting, and then that's after those 3, then you get into like the bulk of it, with Martha and Lei. Lei ends up in a mall in Shanghai, and there's an assassination attempt on her life. And she's like, what? So she's like running, all of a sudden her phone or her watch basically guides her how to get through it, and some software that gets put on her device. And she's like, of course that opens a whole another world of questions of like, who made this, who put this, like how'd this even get on here, like I didn't install it. And so I don't want to go too much into it, because of spoilers, just because there's a lot of twists and turns on this one. It was super good. I can actually see myself rereading this, and I don't reread a whole lot. Books that I read in the month of June. It was overall a great month, minus the little hiccups I had towards the beginning just trying to get into something. But I mean, once I got into here, we were rolling. But yeah, I would love it if you subscribed and stuck around. Also, I would love, just let me know in the comments down below, what was your favorite read in June? Maybe what books you're looking forward to in July. I did recently just post my July TBR, so if you want to check that out, I'll link that down below. But yeah, thank you so much. I hope you have a great day, or evening, wherever you are, time zones. And I can't wait to see you next time. Bye.